Hello, let's make some ají de gallina. As usual, we're going to start by making the aderezo. In this case, I'm using red and white onion and minced garlic. I didn't have enough of both, so I combined them. We're going to cook these very nicely for about 3 to 4 minutes until it gets golden brown and delicious and it has reduced. As you can see, the process is getting started here. The onions are becoming translucent and everything is going to caramelize very shortly. Okay, so while the onions are going, I'm gonna shred my chicken breasts. I boil these for about 12 minutes with some vegetables to give the stock some flavor because we're gonna be using that later. Make sure you shred the chicken in thick pieces, otherwise this will become really tiny during the cooking process and we don't want that. Well, now that the aderezo is looking caramelized, I'm going to add my seasonings. In this case, I'm using half teaspoon sibarita and half teaspoon turmeric. These two are my little secret weapon. They're going to help me enhance the color of the preparation. Sometimes the ají amarillo that we find here in the States may be too spicy, so we're forced to add less, and these two help me with that. So Doña Isabel is the brand that I like the most, and I use their ají amarillo paste and all of their products, to be honest with you. So I'm adding here 1.5 teaspoons of ají amarillo paste, and I'm going to let this cook for about 1 minute. While that works, we're going to soak 3 bread slices with half can of evaporated milk. We're gonna let that soak very well for a few minutes. Now that the aderezo is ready, I'm going to add the shredded chicken and combine these two very well. I am looking for the chicken to caramelize also a little bit, gonna give it a little bit of a crust. This is not a common step, but I love doing this because I believe it adds some more flavor to the preparation. So do that for about 3 minutes and then we'll go back to it. While the chicken is going, I'm going to blend the bread soaked in the milk with some pecans, about 4 pecans. Back to the chicken preparation, making sure that it's looking the way I want it to look, and I'm going to add my bread and pecans mixture. This is what is going to thicken the preparation and give the ají de gallina that delicious texture that we all love. Make sure that you're combining these two very well, and quickly you'll see how it starts to thicken up and also to boil. So at this point, you want to add some liquid, and we're going to use the stock that we reserved from cooking the chicken breast. This is going to help us to thin it up a little bit. And once it boils again, once that stock is absorbed, we're going to add some more of the milk that we had left. This is going to add even more flavor and make it even more and more creamy. And you definitely want this. So combine that very well. Stir delicately and constantly so it becomes a thick preparation again. Now that I'm getting close to be done with the preparation, I'm going to season it with salt, a couple of pinches, and black pepper. Combine that very well and follow with a couple of pinches of cumin. There we go with the cumin, just tiny bit. And another thing that I like to add into my pot is Parmesan cheese, 1/4 cup. The Parmesan will add also some saltiness to the preparation, so be careful with that. And last, butter. It will make it shinier and even creamier. So let that incorporate and serve with potatoes and eggs. Muy bien, vamos a comenzar sazonando el pollo con sal, pimienta, un poquito de sibarita, asegúrate que sale, y comino en polvo. Todo esto lo vamos a mezclar bien para asegurarnos que todas las piezas tengan sazón. En la olla bien caliente vas a poner las piezas para sellarlas. Si tienes mucha cantidad, pues hazlo en 2 partes. Así todas las piezas agarran un bonito color, como aquí. En la misma olla, recuerda no la vayas a lavar, vamos a echar el aderezo. Cebolla roja, ajo, sal, pimienta y los mismos condimentos que utilicé para el pollo, que son sibarita y comino. Ahí lo voy a mover bien para que todo se incorpore. Y el truco aquí es dejar que esto se sofría bastante bien. Te vas a dar cuenta que ya está en su punto cuando veas que se ha reducido. ¿Ves? Se redujo. Y voy a volver las piezas de pollo con todos sus juguitos a la olla y vamos a desglasar con un poco de fondo de vegetales. Puedes usar fondo de pollo o agua si no tienes otra cosa. Vamos ahí a desglasar para sacar todos los juguitos que se pegaron en la olla y continuar con la pastita de maní con leche que hemos preparado. Ahí raspetean ese contenedor bien para sacar todo y no quede nada. Y lo vamos a mover para combinarlo. Vamos a dejarlo cocer tapado por unos 10 minutos, dependiendo del tamaño de las piezas, y tu salsa va a quedar espesita. We're gonna start sweating the onions and garlic in a pot with butter and olive oil. Once the onions are very translucent, add the mushrooms. If you don't like mushrooms, then feel free to omit them. But we're gonna let this cook for at least 5 minutes until it is very well reduced, like you can see here. At this point, we're gonna deglaze with some white wine. In this case, I'm using about 2 tablespoons to deglaze and recover all of the flavors. Now I'm ready to add my rice. I'm using arborio rice, which is a very short grain rice, ideal for risotto. I'm going to add this and let the rice toast for a few minutes. I'm also adding a thyme sprig because I love the flavor that it gives to the preparation. Let that toast very well. You can see how the color of the rice is changing there, and we're gonna do this for about 3 more minutes. Now we're gonna move forward with adding the liquid. Your liquid can be chicken stock, vegetable stock, beef stock, even water if you don't have anything else. The ratio for making risotto is 3 to 1. In this case, if I'm using 1 cup of rice, I'm going to go ahead and add 3 cups of liquid. The trick is that once you see the liquid is being absorbed, you are going to proceed and add some more, like you can see here. Another thing to keep in mind when cooking risotto is to keep your heat on low. In that way, the liquid won't be absorbed as quickly and the rice will cook at a perfect pace. It is very important that you stir the pot constantly. Add pepper and some other spices of your preference, and the salt will go at the end. You know that your rice is getting closer to be done once you see that it's becoming translucent and you have a little small dot in the center. So I'm getting close to that point and I'm going to start adding my final ingredients. Okay, so I'm adding some Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna incorporate that very well and continue with a couple tablespoons of heavy cream. I like the risotto to be very creamy, so this will help me with that. And to finish, I'm going to add some butter just to make it extra creamy and shinier. Also, I'm going to taste it and make sure that I have the right flavor and the right texture. Don't forget to remove your thyme sprig when you're done before serving, and you're good to go. Enjoy! Muy bien, vamos a comenzar sazonando las piezas de pollo con sal, pimienta, comino, sibarita y sellarlas en una olla. En esa misma olla, con un poquito más de aceite, vas a agregar las cebollas finamente picadas. Puedes usar cebollas blancas o rojas. Agrega también un poquito de ajo picado y un poco de pimiento rojo también cortado en cuadraditos. Este es nuestro aderezo, así que lo vamos a sofreír bastante bien. Una vez que ya tiene un poco de color, probablemente después de 5 minutos, vamos a desglasar con cerveza. Si no tienes cerveza, puedes usar agua o caldo. Una vez que el líquido se ha reducido, voy a continuar agregando la pasta de culantro. En este caso yo he licuado juntos un atado de culantro con un poco de agua. Lo voy a mover bien ahí y dejar cocinar por más o menos 3 minutos. Una vez que el tiempo ha pasado, voy a retirar una taza aproximadamente de esta preparación que tengo aquí y la voy a guardar para el arroz. Cuando ya he retirado la taza, vuelvo las piezas de pollo, agregamos un poquito de líquido para que se forme ahí un juguito rico. Lo probamos, rectificamos sazón y vamos a dejar cocinar. No te olvides de que si quieres agregar alverjitas, ese es el momento. Ahí ya mi líquido se ha reducido, las piezas se han cocido bien y lo voy a dejar. La taza de la salsa que sacamos la voy a mezclar con el arroz y vas a preparar tu arroz normalmente, pero cualquier cantidad de la salsa que hayas sacado, en este caso yo saqué como una taza, va a contar como líquido. Mézclalo bien, sazónalo bien también, porque de eso va a depender el éxito de tu arroz. Tápalo y déjalo cocinar. Ahí le echo una crucecita que mi abuelita me enseñó a hacer. Un ratito antes de que el arroz esté completamente cocido, voy a agregar un poco de alverjitas y pimiento rojo cortado en rajitas. Ahora sí, ya está listo mi arroz. Lo voy a peinar, escarbar bien para que todo ese saborcito se esparza bien por todo el arroz. Y tengo la esperanza de encontrar algo que me encanta y que se llama concolón y que miren ahí está. Eso es una delicia. Me lo voy a comer ahorita porque no voy a esperar. Así que, bueno, nada, ahora solamente nos queda servir el arroz con el pollito encima y acompañar con salsa criolla si gustas o con crema huancaína. ¡A disfrutar!
So, Chef Daniela, can you tell us a little bit about yourself so the audience can get to know you?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to see us today. We have so much to talk about. My name is Daniela Hurtado. I'm originally from Peru, born and raised. I moved to the States 10 years ago, and I established, hey, Peru! Woohoo! And I established in New York City, but we'll talk about that later. I went to culinary school also in Peru. And then when I moved to New York, I did a few things there as a culinary instructor. And then I moved here to the DMV area. And now I work with La Cocina VA, which is a nonprofit organization. And we'll be telling you more about that in a bit.
Excellent. So let's get started thinking about the foods that we're going to be making today that speak to Peruvian food culture and traditions. So what is the first dish that you would like to make, and what does it tell us about Peruvian food culture?
So the first dish that we're going to make today is the lomo saltado. And lomo saltado for me speaks a lot about Peruvian culture because Peru is a very diverse country. We have influence from so many different cities in the world, and the lomo saltado represents that so well because it is a fusion, or actually a very nice mixture of Chinese cooking and Peruvian cooking.
Fabulous. And so when we're thinking about the first step, what ingredient are we starting with?
So we're going to start with the onions.
Great. And can you give us some tips and tricks on how to actually properly prepare this onion for the dish?
So for this dish, we need the onion to be cut into a thick julienne. That means that we're going to make cuts along the grain, the natural lines of the onion. And we want it thick because this dish is a stir fry. So for a stir fry, you usually have thicker pieces of vegetables and meat, so it can be al dente. So that's that. And for the onions, I usually soak them for a little while in very cold water so they don't make me cry. But
is that the secret? Okay.
That's my secret.
That's your
it
secret.
Works perfectly for me. It may not work for everybody. Some people wear goggles or they chew a piece of pork.
Okay.
So you don't cry, but water, very cold, works perfectly for me. So what I'm gonna do now is start cutting my thick julienne. I usually do it a little bit thicker, but since we want to introduce this delicious dish to the audience, I'm going a little bit thinner than usual. So as you can see, it's not thin, but it isn't also very, very thick.
Okay.
So that's
easy. Easy.
Yes.
We can all do this. We're starting off easy so you feel comfortable, and then we're going to get a little more complicated as the demo goes on. But it's all fun. So I have a question here, a follow-up question. Why a red onion versus yellow or, other kinds? What is the characteristic of red onion that works well with this dish?
So red onions are usually sweeter. They have a milder flavor, and they are ideal for eating raw, or in this case, al dente. So meaning that the flavor won't be too intense, too overpowering, and you'll get just that oniony kick that you want for your lomo saltado.
Okay, perfect. So we've sliced up the onion, so now we're moving on to the tomatoes.
Yes. So the same thing for the tomatoes. I'm going to cut them in very, very thick pieces. And it's again because of the stir fry. But you want very, not very mature or ripe on
okay,
tomatoes.
You want
you want them to be firm.
Firm, got it.
Yes, because otherwise you'll get them too mushy during the preparation.
Got it. So you want them to have some substance when you're actually stir frying
yes,
them. So stay away from those delicious ripe tomatoes we all love to bite into like apples. Firmer is better in this case. Excellent. Okay, great. And so we have those set up. Now we're going to be talking a little bit about another ingredient, the potato element to this dish, correct?
Yes, my potatoes are here.
And we wouldn't be talking about Peruvian cuisine without talking about potatoes.
Of course, yes, we have over 3,000 kinds of potatoes in Peru, and lomo saltado makes this beautiful combination of the stir fry and the French fries right next to them. We actually eat it with rice as well in Peru, so it's a full hearty meal. But in this case, we're just going to go with the potatoes. These potatoes have been fried twice. Please do this at home if you have the chance. Just lightly blanch them in the oil. Don't go too high. And once they start turning a little bit golden brown, remove them, let them cool down, and then come back to them again at a higher temperature so you get crunchier potatoes. So
crunchy is great in this case. Okay, awesome. And so we've now talked about onions, the tomatoes. We've hit a key ingredient of the potato as part of this dish. So we're thinking about Peru, and I want to give the audience a sense of your childhood growing up in Peru. Can you share some memories of your early life and maybe some food memories as well?
Well, one of the things that I miss the most about my country is those family gatherings. You have a birthday, Mother's Day, or any holiday, and you would pick a menu. So you know that every year grandma or your auntie or your mother will be cooking that dish because that's a tradition. So growing up, that's what I was part of, going into the kitchen, seeing my grandma cooking, or my daddy cooking, and everybody participated. Everybody would gather there and have this wonderful conversation while the food was being cooked.
Yeah, it's like the kitchen is always the center of the home. Not always, but for many families, and you just form such beautiful memories there. So can you talk about a dish that was served at a lot of family gatherings, maybe that your grandmother made or your father made? What was something that really speaks of home for you?
So we have two favorites that my grandma used to make. One is Arroz con Pollo, which is a cilantro-based rice with, of course, chicken. And another one is beans with seco. Seco is another delicious stew made with cilantro and rice. So those are two favorites in my family. We knew that every time there was a holiday or festivity, those were the dishes to go. And with my dad was a lot into lomo saltado making, chifa, so that was his thing.
So lomo saltado really reminds you of your father.
Yes, of course. My dad was obsessed with lomo saltado making, and he would try different techniques, different things every time until he mastered it. And that's what I'm showing you today.
So speaking of this dish and what we're demonstrating for you today, what is the next step in actually getting these vegetables ready for the pan? Typically someone would use a wok, or you could use a saute pan, right? So can we talk a little bit about
Yes.
that influence coming from the East Asian community in Peru as well, with the use of the wok.
Yes, of course. So if you have the opportunity to use a wok, this is the wok. It has that perfect round shape that will allow you to have the fire around the meat, around the veggies, and to have that smoky flavor that you're looking for. That is, I would say, a typical flavor of Asian stir fries. So you can do that, but you can also get something going on with a regular pan. What we're missing though is our lomo.
That one important ingredient,
The
right?
only thing missing. So let me grab it.
We're talking about the meat portion of this dish, right? Just to add that beautiful, robust flavor. Although we had a cooking demo yesterday all about vegetarian cuisine, so we know that vegetarian cooking can also be fabulously flavorful. But tell us a little bit about the meat here and how you seasoned it and prepared it before going into our saute pan here.
So I like to marinate the meat. This is something that I've learned from a Chinese friend. Sometimes you don't see this done at home or at some restaurants even. I prefer to marinate my meat for 30 to 60 minutes so it tenderizes a little bit. The flavor of the garlic and the soy sauce come beautifully together in here. I also have some salt, so the meat is going to be even more tender. And now, before we start, one key step is having your saute pan or your wok really, really hot before you put anything in it. So let me figure out how it, no, I'm kidding. I think I know.
There we go. Like a pro, like
yeah.
a pro. Any kitchen we put you in, your culinary skills shine. So there you go. So when we're thinking about heating the pan, how long does that actually take? Because when I'm at home, I'm like, okay, gotta heat my pan, gotta make sure it's hot. But like, how much time does that actually take on a gas stove like this?
So I would say about 30, 40 minutes. You're gonna see that the smoke is coming nicely out. Not
Like
nothing
30, 40
exaggerated.
seconds, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then at that point, you know that your pan is hot enough to hold the oil.
Got it.
And then you have to let the oil get really nice and hot as well.
So you're saying don't be afraid of the heat. Got
No,
it.
please don't.
I think that's a mistake that maybe kind of home chefs home cooks who are really just first getting into cooking, they kind of add the oil to a cold pan, set it on the stove, and then heat it up. But the key is to really get the metal hot first, then the oil hot, and then you can put in your veggies.
Yes, that is what you're looking for,
Yeah.
because that will generate that nice crust on your meat or on your vegetables and seal all those flavors in, seal the moisture in, and then you can start sauteing and you're gonna have something really, really delicious. So as you can see, it's smoking slightly right now.
Yeah.
And I think it is a good time for us to go ahead and add our meat. You may see some fire, you may not. I'm gonna try to put a show here for you guys. So I hope we get some fire going. Don't get afraid, it's safe.
Okay, I trust you. I trust you.
I trust you too because you told me that it was safe. So
You know,
let's see.
We're gonna have fun. It'll be good.
So before I start, another thing that you're going to see is that I won't touch the meat. I'm gonna leave it there, searing nicely, and then I'll start sauteing, all right? So we're gonna put the meat in. We had one there that wanted to go first than any other piece. So,
Ooh, look at that oil jumping. It's already starting to smell amazing. Just wait a few minutes and this beautiful aromatic kind of, I don't know, that golden roasting smell is gonna waft out into the audience. So you'll be smelling it soon enough, I promise.
so as I was telling you guys, don't touch it, let it sit there for a few minutes, and then you want also to have one single layer, so nothing too overcrowded. You want to make sure that the heat is going nicely in every single piece. So now I think we're at a point where we can start sauteing.
Woo!
That's the fire that I was telling you about. Please don't worry about it.
Oh, I love this. I'm standing a little bit far away.
You want this in your lomo saltado. That's your flavor right there. So make your meat jump a little bit and then set it back again so it gets really, really hot once again.
Okay, you made that look incredibly easy. I think I'd be slightly terrified to try that at home, but I'd be willing to try.
Ashley, you control that fire. The fire will never control you. It's on you.
Okay, I'll have to take that. I'm gonna put that in my memory.
Yes, believe in yourself. So one more. The first nice fire will always be the one.
Okay.
The following ones may not be as potent.
Gotcha.
So once you have your meat cooked through, or you can also leave it a little rare. It's all up to you how you like your meat. In my case, I prefer my chunks of meat nice and thick because I think it adds so much more visually to the presentation. But if you like smaller pieces and your meat fully cooked, you can also go for that. Saw that? Nice.
I feel like we need a round of applause for this beautiful step that we're
We
seeing
love one
here.
piece, but we'll eat it anyway. Nothing is wasted here. All right.
Okay.
So at this point, what I'm going to do is deglaze my pan a little bit with some beef stock. If you don't have beef stock, you can add chicken, vegetable, even some water. And we're going to deglaze. Deglaze means that we're going to recover all those delicious flavors that we have stuck in a pan because we stir fry the meat in here. So once we are in this step, what I'm going to do, and what would recommend you to do, is that you do these in batches. Don't throw all of your ingredients here because you're looking for something that is just done, just al dente. And if you don't do it, you may have a little bit of a wilted collection of vegetables in your pan, and you don't want that. So I have a bowl where I'm going to put my meat. I'm going to reserve it for a minute.
Okay. All those beautiful juices.
That.
Oh,
Yes.
it smells so good. I think you can tell I forgot to eat lunch before the demo, so excuse my kind of, as I describe this to you, it's really just coming from my stomach and my heart because I love cooking and experiencing this so much. So now we're putting a little bit more oil in the pan.
Yes.
It's still hot, and we're moving on to the vegetables next.
Yes. So in your same pan, so you still have all those flavors, you're going to let these warm up really, really hot once again, so you get that smokiness going once more. So you asked me about the Chinese arrival to Peru.
Yes.
Chinese people, the first big wave of Chinese people arrived in 1849 to Peru. And they were all laborers, male laborers that came into our country and mixed beautifully with the local women. So of course they brought their own ingredients, their own tools, and they established really nicely. Then we had a second and a third wave coming to Peru in the 90s, but they were more educated. They came with all of their families together, and that's why we have so many different flavors and accents in our culture. So our oil is already smoking.
It's smoking again, so it's ready to go. Gotcha.
So I'm going to start by adding my onions.
Okay.
Onion steak. I'm going to risk it here.
Yeah. Do you need one of these?
There we go.
She's got chef's hands, so you have the ability to pick up really hot things.
And I'm also a little bit nervous, so if you see things falling, it's because of that. So we're going to saute our onions just for 1 minute. We don't want to overcook them, as I was saying.
Okay.
We still want our heat to be very, very high. And I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce here because they don't have any seasoning yet.
And so you're going to let those onions go. And I remember prior to the demo today, this afternoon, we were talking with our kitchen manager, Kathy Fung, and you were talking about there's also a Japanese community, a migrant community in Peru as well, and there are dishes that reflect the influence from that community as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the conversation you were having with Kathy earlier today?
So we were talking about Nikkei food, which is the fusion of Peruvian and Japanese food. And this is something fairly new. And so my onions are ready. We're going to add that to the meat. And as you can see, our pan is collecting all of those delicious flavors. Yes. So nowadays you can find maki rolls with ceviche sauce and a ceviche made with Japanese ingredients. So in here, we're just gonna add tiny bit more of oil.
Okay, a little more
and
oil,
we're gonna
got
go
it.
to the last part of our preparation.
And we know now that we have to let that oil get nice and hot.
Yes, our pan is already very, very hot, so we're gonna add the tomatoes. Nice. My scallions, I like to add scallions. Another ingredient that we can add here are the parsley and the cilantro that I have already chopped. In here, we saute that nicely and briefly, and we're going to add just a tiny bit more of stock, tiny bit more of soy sauce, a little bit of salt.
Now, do you have
Some
a
pepper.
preference for kosher salt versus other kinds of salt? What's your preferred go-to salt in the kitchen?
I like kosher, but you know, as a cook, you just adapt to what you have, and if you give me pink salt, I'll make it work.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm just trying to recover some of the flavors that are right there on those drippings that are in the bottom of the pan, and I'm going to put these guys back.
Everything back of the pan.
Yes, I'm going to set this off. And we're going to finish with a combination of parsley and cilantro. We have the two of them together here.
So can you tell us a little bit about these fresh herbs and how they might represent the influence coming from Peru in this dish that's highly influenced by the Chinese migrant community that came to Peru in the mid-1800s?
So yeah, the beautiful part of this preparation is that we have cilantro and parsley incorporated in a very, very traditional Chinese stir fry. So we use cilantro and parsley a lot, especially in the coast, but you can see the use of herbs all throughout the country. We have the black mint, we have the Indian mint, we also have muña and paiko and several different herbs. Our food is very aromatic, definitely, so we have the privilege to have all these ingredients available to us.
Sounds
Let's
so
clean up
good.
just a little bit so we can plate.
Yes, okay, I can help clean. We're just gonna get this ready for the fabulous plating process. And as we do that, I was hoping you could tell our audience here today a little bit about the story of how you decided you wanted to become a trained chef, a trained professional. Was there a particular event or person that inspired you to set out on this journey?
Well, yeah. So I think that, as I was telling you at the beginning, definitely growing up in a family where food was a key part of every single holiday or family gathering. On top of that, my mom would cook for us every day, Monday through Friday. So you got your typical mom's cooking, which was really good. My mom is a wonderful cook. But the fun part came when during the weekends, my dad would take over. So my mom had her day for resting.
Okay.
My dad would take over and he would set the mood from first thing in the morning. He would play salsa and we would be able to listen. So there was no way that we were going to sleep in on a Saturday. So he would set the mood, go to the market, leave the house with the music on, come back, and just have fun. So that is what made me kind of pay more attention to the cooking process, and I was engaging more, asking, why do you cut this like this? And why do you cut this like that? And he was so obsessed, as I was telling you, with the lomo saltado making and the chifa making, and he would start asking me to participate, to chop the vegetables in such a way, and he would set up his mise en place, all of his things, just like a TV show. So I think that was my initial discovery or engagement with cooking directly.
I love that. I love when parents have a strong influence on their children, these family stories. So do you need a plate to set that up? Okay, I can get that back here.
I just want to turn the heat a little bit down for the chicha morada that we're making.
Okay.
So we have the plate,
We got the plate, we have our double fried fries. And so what's the kind of, you said sometimes you serve this with rice, but today we have potatoes. So do they go on first?
I like to put my potatoes first because I like to make a sort of a bed.
Okay.
So when the potato is combined with all of the juices of the lomo saltado, you have something that is bombastic.
Okay.
So
it looks so good.
I'm going to make a little bed here.
A little bed for the
The lomo.
the lomo. I love that. we're not putting it to rest, really. We're just making it comfortable.
Yes. So I like to use my hands a lot when I'm cooking. So please allow me to do so.
Yes, of course. This is your kitchen for the next, half hour or so.
So.
Oh, look at all those juices. I know, time flies when we're
goodness.
having fun. I mean, seriously.
So then we're gonna set our meat and our vegetables
that
on
looks
top
so
of that.
good. My mouth is watering right now. So who here in the audience has had lomo saltado before? And yeah, you all know what we're experiencing up here on stage.
All of my Peruvian group right here, right? It is so delicious. Look at the nice juice that we've gotten
it's so beautiful.
during this cooking process. And I'm looking forward for you to try this at
I
some
really want to
point.
try it.
Let
I
me
wouldn't
accommodate
mind.
a couple things.
I have a spoon right here.
I'm a little bit obsessed with
I can
presenting
see,
a clean
I'm seeing
plate.
this. Your chef, your professional chef is shining right now in this moment.
Yes, and what I love about home cooking is that you don't have to go super fancy or anything like that. Just have to make it look pretty. And for these, I'm going to just add a tiny piece of parsley.
Fabulous.
It's washed already. So I like little details. I don't like putting a bunch of herbs on top of anything. I think the less the better. So there you go.
Round of applause for our first dish. Woo-hoo, it looks so good. But like I said, we have about 30 minutes left in our cooking demonstration. So I want to bring our conversation to the next dish that Daniela is going to share with you today, which really ties even more so into Andean food cultures. And we're going to talk a little bit about, in more detail, the importance of potatoes to Andean culture, the importance of peppers to Peruvian culture, and the very diverse cuisines of Latin America. So why don't you tell us what the next dish is that we're going to make?
So yeah, our next dish is papas a la huancaína. And we are going to be making a little bit of noise, but I think you are going to like this recipe, Ashley, a lot. I know you've been in Peru. So
I have. Lucky
you
me.
may have had this dish before.
Believe it or not, I didn't. I did not have this dish when I was in Peru. I had a lot of ceviche, and I did, on a touristy thing, try guinea pig. I don't know, they served it to us, but this is a dish that I did not have. So I'm very excited to learn more about it today.
Okay, so let me get my heat going. Because what I like to do for my papas a la huancaína is to saute my ingredients first. But potatoes play a very important role in the whole country. As I was telling you guys, we have over 3,000 varieties of potatoes. So in the Andes, potatoes were a key. It was pretty much incorporated in most of the dishes and soups. And they developed different techniques.
Yep.
As we were talking about the chuño potatoes. And they freeze-dry potatoes or sun-dry potatoes. And we still preserve those techniques, and we still enjoy dishes made out of these preservation methods. So I have my pan going.
Okay.
And in my case, as I was telling you guys, I like to saute all of my ingredients. In this case, I'm going to do it using ají amarillo paste, just because I like it.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit more about that paste for those of us who may not have heard about it before?
So this paste, which is the ají amarillo, once again, yellow pepper, comes from the natural form, of course, of the pepper. I personally like it because it's not as spicy.
Okay.
So sometimes when you get it canned and when you get it frozen, the spiciness has intensified during the processing of this ají, but I find the paste milder.
Okay.
So I love it because we use ají amarillo paste for several dishes as part of the sofrito or the aderezo, and it's just a beautiful color to add, a kind of sweet but slightly spicy dish. So I love it.
It sounds fantastic. Okay, so that's a key element. But so right now we're making a sauce, right? So this is the salsa part of our salsa con salsa demonstration today. And so you're starting off with onions and garlic. Okay.
Yes, so I'm going to saute this. We're going to let them get golden brown and delicious. GBD. And I'm going to also add my ají amarillo paste.
Okay, great.
So we're gonna add a nice amount.
It is such a beautiful color, like a marigold
Very
color.
intense.
Wow.
So we're going to combine that.
So as we combine, I was actually hoping while we're waiting for these onions to kind of wilt a little bit and get all golden and delicious, can you tell us what eventually brought you to the U.S. and like where did you go and what was that like for you?
So as a child, my family would travel for vacation here, and I kind of always knew that I liked this country and that I wanted to live here at some point in my life. But I came here 10 years ago. I established back then in New York City. And it was so amazing. I was in the middle of New York City walking around, seeing all the tourists, and it was impressive, all the big buildings. I had been in New York before, and I had been a tourist, but now they were part of my community. And so it was a little bit different, but it always impressed me. I would stand right out, coming out of the subway and stand and just appreciate what's around me. You may get bumped while you do that, but it was just really, really great to live there for a while.
That sounds amazing. Now, did you find anything interesting about the food culture in New York when you actually had the chance to live there and sort of like embed yourself in that urban community?
Crazy. I think DC does a great job also diversifying, and we have a lot of different restaurants around the city, but I think New York has a couple more hundreds of restaurants, and you can actually talk to the people while they're cooking on the street. So that was just amazing. I started to work part-time in different little restaurants just to learn, and I had the chance to teach at a culinary school, so I was also learning very specific culinary techniques, Indian, food from the Philippines, from Thailand. So it was just a great experience.
That's awesome. Oh, this is looking fantastic.
Yes,
Speaking of great experiences, watching this come together is one of them.
So we have this done.
Okay.
All right. We're going to let it cool down for a little bit.
Okay.
Let me turn these off. Yes. No? The other way?
I think the magic is that way. Together we can do anything.
So this one was...
This one is off.
Okay.
We're good. We're
right.
good for now, and this one's still on as we intend. So we're doing great.
All right. So these guys are gonna go back in my bowl here, just because I want them to cool faster.
Gotcha.
Because we may have trouble with the blender if we don't.
Yeah. So we're going to be using the blender in a second to bring all of these ingredients together with a few more that we're going to talk about in a second. But yeah, a little hint: don't put super hot foods into your blender. That will be a little difficult.
Yes. So let me review the rest of the ingredients that we have. So we have evaporated milk, Peruvian style cheese, which is pretty much farmers fresh cheese, some crackers.
Crackers, great.
And
love
then
it.
the olives and the egg are going to be just for the presentation. We have some delicious potatoes here.
And those are boiled and sliced.
Yes.
Okay.
Boiled,
boiled, sliced. Okay.
Yes.
It's all about the sauce, really, in this dish.
Actually, it is. So, how about we talk about the chicha for a second?
I think that sounds great.
And then we let this go done for
Fabulous. So we're going to head on to our third dish briefly, and we'll go back to our papas in a second. But tell us, for those in the audience who don't know, what is chicha? And what are we going to use this chicha to make as our third dish, really, a beverage?
So chicha is a traditional drink from the Andes. It was drunk during celebrations. They would go to the Godson temple and drink these for big festivities. Chicha can be made out of alcoholic fermentation, or it can be by boiling the purple corn.
And speaking of purple corn, we're actually going to be passing around some examples of purple corn. We have it on display up here, but we want to give you a chance to look at it up close and personal as we talk about the importance of corn in Peruvian culture. So, back to celebrations and this beverage.
So, the the idea of the mazamorra came out of the drink.
Okay.
So this is a very traditional drink, non-alcoholic. It's just done by boiling the corn.
Okay.
And so you boil the corn. We add some fruit. It can be apples, pineapple, orange zest, some cloves, cinnamon sticks.
Sounds
so you
amazing.
boil that for a couple of hours, and then you strain it, and you get this delicious juice, and you season it with sugar and lime juice.
That sounds amazing. So where are we?
Here,
What is this?
What we have in here is the chicha has already been made and prepared, and we are giving it a second boil. It was already strained, so we have some apples and pineapples and also some sugar. So it's been simmering for quite a bit, and what we need to do now is just thicken the chicha so it becomes a mazamorra.
Okay.
So as you can see, it's boiling, and here we have our chuño.
So I'd love to talk about chuño. So right now this is a beautiful, like very white powder, but what is it made out of? How is it made? And we know it's a thickener, but it's made out of potatoes, right?
It's made out of potatoes, yes. So people in the Andes would go to the highest mountain and in the coldest month of the year and lay down the potatoes and let them freeze and dry.
Freeze and dry. And
so at some point they discovered that they could get the flour out of these potatoes.
It's amazing. So we were talking earlier, Kathy Fung, our kitchen manager, found this really great research about the origins of freeze drying, and many people living in the US often associate that with NASA and how we provided food for astronauts up in space by freeze drying and using that technology. So you might place that technology into the 1960s, but in fact, as you were saying, indigenous communities in the Andes were using freeze drying technology even before the Inca Empire was established. This is generations and generations old, where they would use the natural temperatures cool in the mountains to freeze the potatoes and then stomp on the potatoes with their feet to push out the moisture, just thus drying them, and you have that freeze dried potato that would prevent moisture from being in the potato, and it would thus preserve it longer. No bacteria could grow, and then you said they discovered that you could kind of pound it and create this beautiful flour that could be used as a thickener.
Yes, of course. So I added my combination of a little bit of chuño and water.
Okay.
You can even use the chicha to kind of dissolve.
Okay. It's become so thick. I love that.
It's very lustrous and thick. And that's the good part also about the chuño. It makes it really shiny, really smooth. So it has thickened.
That's amazing. It's like glossy. It's so, and it smells amazing. You said there's clove in there, and it's just fabulous.
Now we just have to wait for it to slightly come back to a boil, so the flour or the chuño flour is cooked, and then we'll be good to go. We turn it up. We add just a few drops of lime juice, and
there you go.
Then you can enjoy it.
And I also wanted to mention that we are going to also be passing around some of those freeze-dried potatoes. These ones are very white. They've been peeled before they were frozen and dried. There's also a version where the skins are left on, and those are kind of I guess like the black version of chuño. I don't know what the technical name is, but you'll see that if you crushed these potatoes, they would create this beautiful, fine, almost baking powder or baking soda-like texture. Okay, so we have this beautiful dish, our lomo saltado done. We almost have our mazamorra finished. We just have to add the lime, but now we're going back to our papas, and we're going back to the sauce, the salsa that we're making. So you sauteed onions and garlic.
And the ají amarillo paste.
And the paste, the yellow pepper paste. So that's cooled down. What's the next step?
So even though we have recipes available for everybody, and those are the right quantities that you have to use at home, I like to start adding everything little by little.
Okay.
So I end up with a very nice, smooth paste. Let me tell you something though.
Okay.
We use a blender today, but in the past, this sauce was done in a mortar.
Oh yeah, mortar and pestle.
Right.
Gotcha.
So they would saute everything, and they would go back to the mortar and then add all of the ingredients and just work it for a few minutes, so you end up with not so smooth, not crunchy, but
It's like I know what you're saying.
Rustic looking.
Yes. Like a sauce that has a little texture to it, a little mouth feel. I like that. But we're using modern technology today with our little blender. So you're adding in the cheese.
Yes, and the order that you can follow here is up to you. I usually start with these two.
So saltines, is that a popular kind of dish or a popular snack in Peru? Where did the...
We eat galletas de soda for everything.
For everything,
with
gotcha.
mantequilla, crackers with butter for, after lunch, like a little snack.
Got it.
But the incorporation of the crackers in this recipe is just because we wanted that flavor, I guess, or that texture, that thickening agent in our sauce.
Got it.
So, cheese, crackers. I'm going to start by adding a little bit of milk.
Okay, and that's the condensed milk, you said?
Evaporated.
Evaporated milk, okay.
Yes, evaporated canned milk.
Got it.
Can you pass me the oil?
Of course.
Thank you. So we have some oil here also. And as I was saying, the egg and the olives are just for presentation.
Okay.
But they also add a very nice flavor to the preparation. So our mixture goes in. And we're going to start making some noise.
Okay, great. Gotta love a little noise. It makes it very easy to talk with you all. That's a joke. But we'll do the best we can. So here we go.
All right.
All right. We'll get that going. Oh, it's beautiful, and it's coming together in this lovely creamy color. Oh, I love that.
Definitely the oil in the evaporated milk adds that smoothness to the sauce as well.
Is that it? Or
Well,
are we
salt
adding a
and
little
pepper,
bit more? Okay.
And then we have to taste it first.
You're a chef. You always have to taste as you go along. I got it.
I have to make sure that nobody will die by eating my food. Let's add some salt and pepper.
Can I add the salt? Did you like my sound effect?
A little bit more.
Okay. Is it enough?
Perfect.
Okay.
And now some pepper.
Let me know when. I always feel like I'm in
before.
Santa's workshop when I'm doing this.
And now we're gonna blend it again.
Okay.
Before we taste it, just for the salt and the pepper to mix in together. That's that.
Fabulous.
And
I'm gonna try some too. What do you think, chef?
it's spicy.
Ooh, that's so good.
It's good, right?
This is so good. Now, I have to tell you, I tried this dish when I was chatting with you and you suggested it as something we made today. I went out to a Peruvian restaurant, not to be named, here in DC, and I got this dish. And I will tell you, the sauce that I'm having here is so much more flavorful. It is the peppers, it's just so beautifully balanced. And I have to tell you, like, wow, my mind is being blown right now compared to what I tried a few weeks ago. Chef, you are so talented.
My pleasure.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what is,
Let me have a little bit of coffee.
you need a little bit of coffee because we have to keep our energy going for the last 10 minutes or so. But are we at this point ready to kind of plate this dish?
Yes.
So what's the technique here?
The technique is that there's no technique. You can present your papas a la huancaína in the way you like.
Okay.
I'm just gonna suggest how it can be put together.
Fabulous.
All right, so I'm going to just add some of the sauce along my papas. And I love to use these potatoes. These are Yukon potatoes.
Okay.
Because they are so yellow and so beautiful. And in Peru, we have yellow potatoes that the texture is completely another story.
It's a different story.
Yes.
Very different from the
We
Yukon.
will have to do
a whole nother demo on that.
Cooking up
or
history.
3 or 4.
Yeah, for that. So also, one thing that I do want to say is that the texture, this is the ideal, but if you like it thicker or if you want to make it lighter or runnier, you can do that. It's up to you guys, as long as you incorporate the ingredients that are traditionally used in Peru.
Got it.
So what I'm going to add to that are my eggs.
Fabulous. I love all these different shades of yellow, and then they'll be punctuated by these olives.
Right.
But this kind of smoky,
Let me
dark
make my
color.
olives a little bit smaller.
Okay. You like a different style on the olive. Okay.
Just because.
So as you're kind of fixing up the olives there, we just poured this beautiful salsa on top of these papas, and I wanted to bring us back to the conversation of salsa. And we've been talking about your father on and off during this demonstration, but not only was he a master in the kitchen and inspired you to go on to pursue a career in the culinary arts, but he also has a strong connection to salsa. And can you share that with us?
Yes, so my dad was very, very passionate about salsa music. He was a huge fan, and I think that translates today in my life and who I am. We would listen to salsa every day. If you ask me, when did you start it? I really don't know. I think I was born listening to salsa, and I can only imagine how my dad was playing salsa the day that I was born, of course, because it was a big event, right? So he would not only play it, he would tell us about it. Who's the singer? How did the band started? How this music is from Puerto Rico, or that one is from New York, and this one is Cuban salsa. So all of that information, I think our family really embraced it. And then one day he started his own band, and he started performing, and he did pretty well. And he was a singer in Peru. He would go during the day to his job. He was responsible of social responsibility department in a big company in Peru. So you would see him with a suit and a tie during the day, Monday through Friday. And then when he got a gig, he would completely get into character and sing some good Hector Lavoe, Fania music in clubs.
Wow. And you said he traveled not only in Peru, but like around the world with his singing in a salsa band.
So my dad did a very specific style.
Like a genre.
So he did a tribute to Hector Lavoe, which is one of the most wonderful representative of salsa music, and of course my favorite. So he had the chance to travel doing this tribute. He did a tour here in the States, and then he went to Spain. So he went to quite a few places. And we were all part of that. That was wonderful, having that in the house. I wasn't that young anymore, but I think I never moved out because Dad was in the house and playing salsa, and the learning never stopped.
Oh, I love that so much. I love imagining your whole family in the kitchen dancing and listening and singing and cooking all at the same time. It's like the most wonderful things in life coming together in the home, and I just love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have this beautiful dish prepared. Again, fabulous. Yes. And as we go to kind of bringing our last dish together, this drink, and you can do what you need to do for presentation, but I wanted to give you a chance to speak about your work with La Cocina VA and how you kind of transitioned from working in professional kitchens in New York to really turning towards social activism and reducing barriers for community members in Virginia. So can you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you're trying to do?
Yes, so La Cocina VA is a nonprofit organization that uses the power of food to generate socioeconomic development in low-income communities. So we do this through culinary training and small business development. We provide training at no cost for immigrants, youth, asylees, refugees, women that want to go a step farther and be independent. So we support the training, and then we help them find employment in the industry. So we have partnerships with hotels, restaurants, supermarkets, catering companies around the area, so we can find them sustainable employment, because we want them to stay there, to get benefits, to get everything that is needed for you to succeed in the culinary industry.
Wow, and your organization has been so impactful in the local community, and you're actually growing. You have a new space. Has it opened yet, or where is it going to open, and what are the new facilities that are part of La Cocina VA now?
So La Cocina will expand next year. The building has been
constructed, because we visited it as part of our, getting to know Daniela and her organization. Yep.
So we will open around March, and the beauty of this is that we're going to go from being able to train 10 people, we're going to triplicate that, and we're going to be able to train 30 people. So we're not only going to have the culinary program, we're going to have a community cafe that will welcome local chefs and showcase products that we are going to, or our graduates will be making in our kitchen incubator space.
That's awesome.
So all of the training is at no cost for the participants of the training. That is why the organization is so important, because you don't have access to formal training, to certifications. You have to pay.
Yeah.
And also, one thing about La Cocina VA is that we do the training also in Spanish. So it's available in English for everybody in the community that speaks the language. But if you don't, and you happen to speak Espanol, all of your classes can be in Espanol. We want everyone to feel included, and we want for you to be able that even though you don't speak the language yet, you can still get trained and get certifications.
That's amazing. Oh, and there's so, I mean, yeah, seriously, we need to applaud for that.